Welcome to another episode of the Pause and Effect podcast, your go-to source for all things pet care. I'm your host, Dr. Kara, and today we have a special exploration into a topic that holds immense importance in the world of responsible pet ownership, pet insurance. Joining us is Cameron, a pet insurance expert from Preauthorization. Together, we'll unravel the mysteries behind pet insurance, covering everything from its fundamental purpose to the nuances of selecting the right plan for your furry companions. Get ready for an insightful journey into the world of pet insurance that every pet owner should embark on. Welcome, Cameron. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I've been really excited about this conversation.
You know, I've been a big fan. I hunted you down on Instagram, and here we are.
So you're here to talk about insurance, and there's a lot to learn. This is a subject we should be having conversations about every day, because really there's a lot of variation when it comes to insurance. So please take a moment to introduce yourself. You've come all the way from Cape Town.
So my name's Cameron. I work at a company called Pet Underwriting Management Agency, P.UMA for short. So we've been around for about 12 years now. So we're one of the first guys to get involved in this crazy world of pet insurance. Very different landscape now. We're based out in Cape Town. We've got an office in CBD. We look after about 28,000 pet lives.
Wow. Quite a responsibility.
It is, and it's such a different product at the end of the day. Insurance is generally this grudge purchase. It's non-emotional. And now you enter into a fold of fur baby, and there's emotional attachments, and there's financial relief. And there's a very good feeling when you get to be able to help someone look after a little fur child. So just to give you an indication, we process between 5,000 and 7,000 claims a month.
Wow.
Yeah, which equates to anywhere between 7 and 8 million every single month.
So can we start with the very basics, just to set up the landscape here? Insurance for pets. Like any other insurance, it's there for a security net in the event that something happens, okay? And there obviously are various policies. Yes. We'll go into that because that's quite critical in terms of our conversation. Some of the terminology that we need to unpack are things that people just don't understand, and I think maybe this is why a lot of people don't trust insurance. Yeah. Either they've had a personal experience where they've not understood a lot of the terminology, they've not understood the terms and conditions. Yes. So insurance, why should people have insurance for their pets?
Because vet bills are expensive.
Yes.
No, look, at the end of the day, like any insurance policy, it's a financial protection, it's security, it's peace of mind. Because more often than not, these types of things go wrong when you very least expect them to go wrong, or it's right at the end of the month when you can't afford it. And I think as a pet owner, if you are in the ability to be able to afford pet insurance, it gives you that peace of mind that on a Sunday evening at 9 o'clock, when something terrible happens to your pet and you need to put down 30 grand at the vet practice in order to get assistance to save your fur baby, that's when the policy really comes into fold. I mean, we can talk about other benefits such as routine care, and you get the additional benefits of your vaccinations, etc. being paid.
Let's do that. So, let's start from the very basic policy, which is an accident benefit cover. Yep. So that will cover pets in the event of an accident when they're admitted to hospital, very much like a hospital plan for people. So. Okay, and then it's tiered ultimately up to a fully comprehensive cover, is that right?
Correct.
Which, like you say, may include things like vaccinations and dental care and things. And then there's the in-between.
Correct.
Okay.
So I would say there's 3 tiers of cover. Your most basic form of cover, which for me, if anyone is just looking to get some sort of cover, there seems to be a perception in the market of accident covers being cheap. They're lower price. Do I have the right kind of cover? For me, an accident policy, you get different levels of cover, 10, 20, 30,000, which is quite adequate because people talk about the big vet bills. But practically as a pet owner, when you look at what's covered by an accident policy, so a pet fight, everyone thinks dogs, cats in the middle of the night, yeah, absolutely everything. Poisoning, fall from an elevated position, laceration. So you got your pet on a hike and it runs past a sharp rock. Next thing there's a cut. Foreign object removals, the funny ones. Dogs eat funny things.
I was about to post a reel on my Instagram thing of my dog with my underwear in his mouth yesterday. I was utterly horrified, but it happens. It happens.
And that's a 10,000 Rand procedure to get that removed. So while it's a laugh at the time, I mean, we've seen cell phones, we've seen
Not so
jeans.
funny when you're putting that out of your own dog.
Correct. So your starting off policy would be an accident. It gives you cover in the event that an emergency happens, unforeseeable event. So anything would really be covered with the exception of any illnesses.
Okay.
From there, you generally find guys would have a middle range product. So if I look at Puma, where I work, majority of our brands do have a mid-tier product, which will have an annual limit, followed by a few sub-limits, which I think we'll go into a little bit later. And then you get your full comprehensive, right? Generally, that's got a much higher limit. Generally speaking, you're going to have adequate cover on that. You're going to be covered for illness and accident. And then a lot of the policies, you can bolt on things such as routine care and other additional benefits as well, which as a pet owner, I think you really need to do the research, understand what you're looking for as a pet owner, because there's so many different policies out there, right?
Yeah, how do you choose? So let's go on to that. Like, how do you make the decision? Is it financially, like, I can only afford this and I'm prepared to, if my dog, for example, needs a dental, I'm prepared to, my vet says, oh, you need a dental, I'm going to save up for a few months and I can do that. Whereas some people go, I know I'm not necessarily going to be in a position to allocate, 500 or 600 Rand a month and save up for a 3K dental. So is that how you make the decision?
So I might be a little bit biased in this answer because so I work in what's called an underwriting manager. So we work alongside insurers. They actually outsource the function to us. So a UMA is a specialist vehicle. And then we sell through what's called intermediaries, or a broker is what most people would know it as. And I think a broker, whilst yes, you're going to pay a little bit extra per se, you're getting a level of advice from someone who knows the industry, who's actually paid to represent you. You see the stories around the call centers. They're selling one product. They're quite aggressive. If they're not selling you pet, they're selling you a million other things. Whereas with an intermediary, you've actually got someone in your corner to protect you as a customer. So I would, as I said, a little bit biased, but I would start with an intermediary because legally they're one of the few entities which can compare products.
Okay.
So as a consumer, I really challenge people, even if you've got a direct policy you're looking at, go to your broker. Say, please compare this for me. What is the differences between this level of cover and that level of cover? And also explain to them what you're looking to get out of your policy. Because certain people want to go get the full suite and get your vaccinations, your deworming, and have the cover for accident and illness. And then there's the rest of the guys, maybe you're just looking for accident cover. A broker's really there to guide you, represent you, and make sure you have the right policy.
That's great advice. And in terms of breed-specific things, so obviously, is that an important factor?
So, again, at Puma, our stance is quite different. So a lot of the guys may exclude certain conditions based on a breed. We believe every single pet's an individual. So in our space, something we do which is a little bit unique is upfront underwriting. So just to explain to the guys, underwriting a policy can either happen upfront when your policy incepts, or it can happen at point of claim. At Puma, we believe you should do it upfront because the last thing you should be doing is telling someone what they're covered for and what they're not covered for when they need the policy the most. So in terms of breed-related exclusions, yes, we know certain breeds have hereditary conditions. Yes, they may be excluded. How we manage that is that we have a process whereby we underwrite every single pet individually.
Okay.
So if there is a pre-existing condition and it has been there and your breed just so happens to have that, then yes, it would be excluded, or there would be a waiting period based on the policy. It's not a lifelong condition as well.
So let's talk some terminology, because I'm sure we've lost a few listeners already with waiting periods. And so what is an excess?
Okay. So there's different terms. You get an excess, you get a co-payment. They're relatively similar, but long and short of it, an excess is when you have a claim, there's a certain amount which you as the policyholder would have to pay. So it could be a percentage, it could be a fixed rand value, 10% of the value of the claim, and that's something that you should also be looking at when you're signing up for your policy. So
ask what the excess is.
Correct.
Okay.
Because that's what you're going to be in for as the pet owner. So from an excess standpoint, it should be fixed. Certain policies also have what you call a co-payment, where you would have to pay a portion of the claim as well. Okay. 50%, 40%, it varies from policy to policy.
So these are the important. So ask what the excess is.
Yes.
Ask if there are any co-payments.
Correct.
And then the waiting period.
Yes.
Okay.
So waiting periods is another one, because more often than not, you find certain people are looking to activate their policy really, really quickly.
Funny that.
So, and I'm generalizing, but a waiting period could be anywhere from 30 days to 90 days out in the market, or what we've seen. That's a period in which you can't claim for certain procedures. So how we work it on our side of the fence is we have a 30-day waiting period on illness, no waiting period on accident.
Okay.
And that's obviously just to protect the book. We don't want guys coming on board, having a claim really early and then leaving us. So unfortunately, we have to put these things in. But again, it just comes back to getting your cover as early as possible, getting that waiting period out the way so that you can enjoy the cover and the full benefit of the policy.
Fantastic. Sublimits. What is a sublimit?
This is my favorite term. So, as I said to you, I've been doing this for 9 years, and I believe the forefront of pet insurance and what's really required in the market is education, because you've just hit the nail on the head, sublimits. It's the one that no one really talks about, and for me, it's the biggest thing you should be looking for in your policy. So everyone knows what an annual limit is. That's the maximum amount that a policyholder can claim in a year. But then some of the guys will go out there and have sublimits, which is per an event, where they place a limit. So an example I always like to use is I've seen a limit of 3,000 Rand on an MRI. Now, on a medium to a large-sized dog, you're looking between 8 and 10 grand. So what that would mean in layman's terms is if you had to process a claim under an MRI and you had a sublimit of 3,000 Rand, the insurer is only going to pay the 3,000, you're still going to pay your excess, and you're paying your premium. Okay. So, again, Puma, we try, a lot of our policies have no sublimits on our comprehensive plans, the top end, because we don't believe limiting the claim per se. We refer to individual case management. And I understand that vet A may cost more than vet B or vice versa. We look at what the appropriate costs are and allow the policy to react from there.
All right, pet enthusiasts, before we dive into the next segment, we're going to take a short break to talk about something that's not just about what your pet eats, but also about their well-being. I'm thrilled to share a personal experience and introduce you to a game changer, Ultra Pet's accident benefit cover. Now, let me channel my inner Andrew Huberman for a moment, because what we're about to discuss is as crucial to your pet's health as the nutrients that they consume. We all know that accidents happen, especially with our energetic furry companions. That unexpected trip or an unforeseen event resulting in an injury can be a challenging time for any pet parent. But fear not, because Ultra Pet has your back. Ultra Pet's accident benefit cover. Picture this. You buy Ultra Pet food not just for the premium nutrition, but for the added layer of protection. Free Ultra Plus benefit cover. It's all part of the Ultra Plus loyalty program. Now, why is this so important? Well, aside from the incredible nutrition, it helps to alleviate the financial strain that might come with unexpected veterinary bills. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. If your active Ultra Plus membership aligns with an unfortunate accident involving your pet, you can claim back a portion of your vet invoice. It is designed to cover accidental injuries sustained by our domestic cats and dogs. An accidental injury, in this context, refers to harm caused by an unforeseen and unintended event. Now, I've had the personal experience of relying on this accident benefit cover, and the peace of mind it brought during a challenging time was immeasurable. It's that added layer of protection that we all wish for when our pets need it the most. So, fellow pet parents, after this podcast, I encourage you to explore the benefits of Ultra Pet's accident benefit cover. Check out the terms and conditions and ensure your furry friends are covered in an unexpected event. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments, and let's continue to prioritize the well-being of our beloved pets. Now back to our discussion with Cameron. Stay tuned for more insights on the Pause and Effect podcast. So I want to go back to the waiting period, particularly when we're saying, okay, get insurance as early as possible. So I have a new puppy, it's come in for its first vaccination, and I'm obviously making recommendations on nutrition and vaccination and deworming and so on and so forth. And one of the conversations we tend to have is, have you considered insurance?
Yeah.
So we, as vets, are very sensitive about not making recommendations. We're not legally meant to be making recommendations as such. You can on a personal level to your buddy, but even that we're very cautious about, and we can talk about that further. But we may say to someone, have you considered taking on insurance for this puppy?
Yeah.
And they go, okay, great. We tend to approach it from the perspective that these are the companies that we deal with. These are the contact details. Go away and make an informed decision.
Yeah.
So that's our approach. Maybe you can tell me how to do it better. I'm keen to learn. But how long is it going to take for that new puppy then to be covered?
Yeah.
Because obviously with puppies, surely it's different to an adult dog, or is it the same?
No, very much so. It is different. So my advice is, the reason I say get your policy early is there's these things called exclusions, where if you come on too late and the event's already happened, you could have a lifelong exclusion on the policy.
So like a dermatitis, like itchy skin conditions are excluded then from...
Correct.
Okay.
And often there's a knock-on effect. So if you've got a, cruciate ligament and the one side's gone, the likelihood is we're going to exclude the other side as well, because it's a matter of time.
Okay.
So, maybe getting an entry-level policy for a puppy, for a kitten, just so the cover is there. Okay. That way, it's like medical aid used to be, right?
Yeah.
Before they changed the legislation back in the day, it used to be very hard to move medical aid once you were in on one, because if you move from one to another, you're going to have an exclusion on your policy. Pet insurance works very, very similar to that. So if you can afford and you're privileged enough to get cover early on, get that policy on, stay on cover. That way, if there are any events which take place, it will not be excluded and you'll have the full cover for the lifetime of the policy.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What I generally find is that people want the insurance at the start. Mm-hmm. They then go, life's getting really expensive, the kids are going to school, I know the other expenses I need to. One of the first things that people let go are their insurance cover. Yeah. Maybe not for the car or for themselves, but they think their pets can. Maybe, and we'll hopefully also talk about this, we've got lots to talk about, when you have multiple pets, which is, I think I'm going to try and remember to ask you that. But sometimes people will then discontinue that insurance, and then maybe as the dog, I'm using an example here, becomes arthritic, they go, we need to get insurance again.
Yeah.
And so the critical times is obviously when they're young and when they're old. That may be a period of time in the middle where hopefully their dog's not as mischievous as mine and they don't get lacerations and chew underwear. But do you find that's a typical sort of scenario? Do people discontinue it when they think, everything's fine, I've been paying for this for 3-4 years and nothing's happened, and then they're like confronted with the inevitable big claim?
It's the catch-22, right? When you have it, you never use it, and then unfortunately we've seen so many cases where a month afterwards, the client's calling and saying, my word, this major event's happened, can you help? And unfortunately, an insurance policy is an unforeseeable event, not a foreseeable event. So in those cases, you lose cover. And that's why I say to find an entry-level policy at a lower cost could be a good alternative.
So maybe to downgrade in those times. So if you have a fully comprehensive, you've got this skin a bit expensive, to at least go to an accident.
Correct.
Okay.
And then, there's all types of different policies coming out of the market. There's household cover as well, right? Where you can cover all the pets in a household in a singular policy.
Imagine I have one fur baby, and this is now, and we're finding this more and more in South Africa, people are really forming connections with their pets, and they are referred to as fur children or fur babies, or certainly very important family members. Yeah. And when you've got one, that's fine. You can say, I'm going to go fully comprehensive. But as one becomes 5, having that, are there policies that cover multiple pets in the household? Yeah,
so there are policies out there which you can take a look, which will give you, again, you're not going to get the full comprehensive, so they will have a few limits, etc. So at Puma, I'm going to just use what I know internally. We have a policy which doesn't matter how many pets you have in the house, and it covers you for accident up until 5,000 and for illness up until 1,500.
So it doesn't matter which pet in the household gets injured?
You just limit it to 4 claims in a year, and each claim has a limit. So the maximum we'll pay for an illness is 1,500, and the max per an event we'll pay on an accident is 5,000. Okay. But again, it comes back to at least you have some level of cover, and there's some sort of financial freedom that you get, or freedom is probably the wrong word. Peace of mind that you get just by having this type of cover. That's why I always implore people, go out and research the policies. And yes, it's confusing. So go get a professional. You don't have to pay a cent to give you this advice. And get them to do all the legwork. Get them to explain to you in layman's terms, what is a sublimit? What is an annual limit? What does that mean when I have a claim? At which point will I pay in excess? That way, when you do make the purchase, number one, you're managing your expectations. Number two, you know exactly what you're in for. And then third and foremost, hopefully you save a little bit of money along the way.
Absolutely, and that you can actually get the treatment that your pet requires. Hey? I suppose that is very emotive.
Correct.
When people...
Well, my question to you, I know you say vets recommend pet insurance policies, recommend having one at least. I also think it gives vets the ability to have the freedom to give adequate treatment, right? Because more often than not, if someone can't afford it, you may cut a few corners, still giving good treatment, but you're trying to help someone out. At the end of the day, I think we all want best for our fur babies, and the saying, pets are the new plants, plants are the new kids.
Yes, absolutely. We're seeing that more and more. No, I agree. So from a vet's perspective, there is no way that we are very transparent with our charging. However, you'd be surprised when we have a client that comes in and it's a laceration, they're like, I can't afford this. How suddenly a 20-minute surgery becomes actually 10 minutes because we feel bad, you know? And everyone's like, oh, vets are only in it for the money. Well, had that conversation. But ultimately we do this because we love it. And if an animal is insured, it allows us, like you say, to not necessarily delay. So often we're confronted with, exactly like you said, a situation where there are limitations. And so if a pet is insured, we say, rather than delaying that x-ray, because you can only afford the bloods, and that's more of a priority, let's do the bloods and an x-ray today. Yeah. Your insurance will cover it.
Correct.
And so it's not necessarily that things are not done, but they're done in a sort of time you see, which really makes a difference in terms of a workup.
Yeah, and it gives the policyholder the confidence to not be nervous on, what is this thing going to cost, how much I'm going to be in for, because, we hear the big claims. I mean, we had our biggest one the other day, I think it was 140,000 rand on a single pet. Prior to that it was 110 on a bilateral hip replacement, and then before that 60, but those claims are far and few between, but when the costs do rise on those types of claims, it really does get exorbitant and it rises quickly. And I think the last position anyone wants to be in is making a choice to keep your pet alive or not over a financial decision.
Yes, and we are faced with that daily. Yeah. People go, I just simply can't afford it. And for me, the important thing is having that conversation up front, because as soon as you start hooking up an IV line or giving pain relief, those costs start to accumulate. And so when you're faced with particularly an accident where people haven't had time to prep for things, those are life or death moments.
And I'll probably repeating myself, but that's why I say the accident cover, which people tend to, at least in my experience, people tend to frown upon. Those are the actual events that happen late at night. And an illness is an illness. I understand it happens, but there's probably a higher likelihood of an accident taking place than an illness, generally speaking, specifically on younger pets.
Absolutely. So we're obviously saying consider pet insurance early. Let's talk about age limits. So when is it too late to insure your pet?
Okay, so again, different policies cover different ages. A lot of the guys will have a cutoff at 8 or 9 on your full comprehensive. There is a direct correlation between the age of the pet and the risk going up. So there's 3 factors we'll rate on. There's the breed, the age, and the size of the pet. So those will be our 3 major rating factors. So to answer your question, we've got a policy which will cover you up until 12 years old on a few of our middle plans, and then majority of our comprehensive we have a cutoff at 8 or 9. Ideally you want to get it before they're 8 years old if you are looking to get that full comprehensive. I know there are plans in the market go a little bit higher, but it's going to be a give and take, because you're going to have to accept some cutoff.
Absolutely, and some exclusions potentially, obviously by that stage.
Correct.
They're bound to have come across things.
Or waiting periods.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's tap into, because I'm very interested. Before we went on air, we spoke about the number of pets currently insured in South Africa. What are we looking at?
Yeah, so I don't have a definitive number. We estimate anywhere between 100 and 150,000, around about there. South Africa is a pet crazy community, so we actually have 9.2 million domestic dogs and 2.2 million domestic cats. That was a census done a few years ago. So it shows you that there's a huge pet community out there, and a very small percentage of them that are insured, and that's changing very fast. Pet insurance has certainly become the flavor of the month for all the insurance companies. You're seeing every single competitor enter into the fold, and it's really become a frontline product all of a sudden, and I think that speaks to people are humanizing pets. Pets are really becoming an integral part of the family, and they're family too.
They very much are. I just want to check on definitely. Okay, so let's talk about from a vet perspective, and the reason why we are always nervous about making recommendations for a particular policy. So I have had, from personal experience, I have made a recommendation and said, I think they're pretty good. And it's come, and totally because I've not been part of the decision making, or had the terms and conditions or understood the policy in terms of what's been excluded. When a claim's been submitted, it's been refused, and that's obviously can be quite damaging to a friendship.
Correct.
But we have a few issues as vets making a recommendation on a particular policy. One of them, obviously, is that we're not involved in the discussion. We are outsiders. The policy is between you and your client. That's right, and we are separate to that conversation. So we are sometimes asked to provide things like clinical notes, which I can tell you from my experience as practice, we don't do. So clinical notes, and I'm taking this opportunity, sorry, Cameron,
not a problem.
to get listeners to understand that clinical notes are our notes.
Yes.
They're our notes. They're often abbreviated. They make sense to me. They may not make full sense to my colleague. It's my thoughts in my mind.
Yes.
They're differential diagnosis, provisional diagnosis. It's a way for me to communicate my thoughts at that moment.
Yeah.
If we are asked to write a report, that is different. So if we are asked to provide some information and the owner consents to it, then that's different. But historically, we would be contacted by an insurance company saying, we need the clinical notes. And people would go, sure, and send it through. And often what would happen is within those clinical notes, there is an opportunity to go, oh,
something
you
there.
saw some itchy skin there. No, I'm sorry, not. So please give us some clarity on that.
So look, the underwriting, we would call that underwriting. So getting the medical histories is a pivotal part on what we do, because it allows us to manage the risk and ensure that the book remains profitable and sustainable, so the cover is there. So your medical histories really give us insight into not only the medical condition which it happened previously, but also the behavior of the pet, right? A lot of people ask, why in an accident policy do you ask for a vet history? Well, is this an aggressive pet? So it's more to give the insurer insight as to what's previously happened to the pet, what conditions have happened, and then, yes, a net effect of that is that there may be exclusions or waiting periods placed on the policy. Ultimately, the insurance companies, we do try to contact the vet practices and get this directly. Not all vet practices are willing to share it. It's at that point we'll ask the policyholder and get that consent so that we can make an informed decision and tell the customer what they will be covered for and what they won't be covered for. That way, in turn, they get to make an informed decision at the end of the day.
But often this is not even done necessarily ahead of time. So maybe inception of the policy, we can understand, please can you, maybe it's a case of in future we'll see these forms where it's a case of ticking off, has this pet had any previous. So we used to get the forms that we have to sign and say they're vaccinated, they castrated, so there's certain things we can easily tick off. But I think the contention is often around this, are they looking for an opportunity to get out of paying this claim at the time?
100%.
And so
I think then as a policyholder, if there are any question marks around an exclusion or waiting period, consult with your vet. I think the vet, as we was chatting earlier, you guys are an influencer, you're a trusted voice, right? And I think the vet can play a very pivotal role in a motivation to the insurance company and say, this was just a note, it doesn't mean this was a condition, and give us further insight into it. Ultimately, we need to get some sort of data from somewhere, and the best route to get that is from a professional off their medical notes and get that history so that we truly understand the ins and outs of that pet and what they've been through. So I implore people, if you are getting a policy, try get that medical history to the insurer, because the last thing you want is for potentially a customer has gone to 3 different practices and you get referred to a specialist, and now the insurance company finds out about something they weren't aware of, and then that's almost where you hear your horror stories when there's underwriting at point of claim, because that's when you need the policy the most. And now your insurance company is telling you, hang on, this isn't covered, we weren't aware of this. Again, it's why I always, I'd push people, if you can, get your insurer to underwrite your policy up front. You have the right to know what you're covered for and what you're not covered for, so that when the claim takes place, you get a quick response from the policy.
Absolutely. No, I think it's better to, like you say, just to be informed and know where you stand. So we've spoken before about going and maybe using a broker or contacting various companies and making some comparisons yourself. Are there any comparison sites? I know the UK are very hot on like insurance comparison sites where you can go age, whatnot, and then they'll throw out a few and give you. Is there anything currently in South Africa that?
There are 1 or 2. I don't think we I think there's an opportunity there. The problem in South Africa is when it comes to financial products and offering advice, you need to be an FSP, right? There's a lot of legislation, etc., which is why vets also stay away from offering advice, because there's a whole bunch of legalities, etc., around that. So there are a few sites out there. Again, I'm going to be biased and come back to the broker. Make the broker do the legwork. The broker is licensed to offer advice. The broker has a responsibility to explain a policy to you. There's a whole bunch of checks and balances they need to do called a record of advice. Get your broker to do that.
And it doesn't cost you more?
No.
There's no sort of commission thing that...
Yeah, look, so a broker does, you pay commission to a broker. It ranges 10, 15, maximum 20% on a short-term insurance policy. For me, what you get out of paying that additional 20% is there's a lot more value that lies in that, because at point of claim, for you now to go directly against an insurance company and have a legal battle with them around a policy wording which they wrote, and if you're not someone who comes from a financial service industry with that background, it can be quite difficult to defend your position or even understand why your claim is being repudiated or rejected. However, when you've got a broker in your corner, their job is to actually, you submit the claim to them. They take over from there. They liaise with the insurance company, they ensure that the payouts are correct, and they manage that claims process for you. So you've almost got this insurance guru in your corner,
okay.
And if you've got any problems, go chat to them, they'll sort it out.
So it's also around a time when things are particularly emotive and you're dealing with your animal sickness, and rather
Correct.
than having to worry about now fighting.
Correct, and not only that, a broker's independent, right?
Okay.
So more often than not, when you go to a direct insurer, they're selling one policy, which is their brand, and that's what they're going to push. Where with an independent broker, you've got a little bit of flexibility.
They are your comparison site.
Correct.
Okay. So another couple of things I really just want to get the opportunity to ask you is, It's all very well having insurance, but what we sometimes find is that people don't have that money up front.
Yeah.
So how does it work? Explain to us how it works in terms of how things are paid out and the time frame.
Sure. So, look, everyone has their own set of turnaround times. Generally, at Puma, we'll have a 72-hour turnaround time. We make payments 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. So there's two ways you can submit your claim. The one's when you go to the vet practice, you make your payment, you send us your claim, we'll reimburse you. We say 72 hours because you could be with a different bank to us, but we make payments daily. So provided it's in before a reasonable time in the day, we'll load that payment and release it. The other way which we manage claims, which is much more beneficial to the policyholders, if you know you're going for a scheduled event or you know you're going to the vet for a procedure, let us know about it up front. We'll liaise with the vet practice. We'll actually pay 70 to 80% of the claim up front, so that no money really leaves the customer's pocket, and then we process the claim from there. So pre-authorization is a big one. If you can pre-auth your claim, it just makes things a little bit smoother.
Big difference, yeah, even in terms of the workup.
Yeah.
So we have clients who often go, I'm insured, they'll pay you, which is obviously quite a risky situation for all involved, because for whatever reason you may reject the claim.
Correct.
It's quite a scary situation to be in. So how do you manage it when people simply just don't have the money?
Yeah, so that's where your pre-auth really comes into the fold, because we'll contact the vet directly and actually send in the POP and make the payment, right, in those instances. But to use your example, if it's an emergency, it's 10 o'clock at night, and you've got to make a payment, and someone needs to verify a policy, that's where I think insurers and vet practices really need to come to the fold now and start working more hand in hand. Have some sort of lookup function where you can check someone has cover. The vet can view if there's any exclusions or anything around that. And then the vet can make an informed decision, because, to your point, a lot of these vet practices are individually owned, and not all practices are willing to trust the insurer and just accept they're going to be paid, which can be a difficult one.
Yeah. So now hopefully in future we'll have that functionality where you can log in and go, this is what they're here for.
Yeah.
Is it approved or not?
Correct. I think that'll be the way forward, at least from my perspective. If you go overseas, the guys work quite closely with the insurers, and I think there's a pet at the end of the day, which is ultimately looking for treatment. And if we can get vet practices and insurers talking more and get more transparency and level of understanding, that'll only enable vets to react better and know the customers are covered.
Oh, that's great advice. This has been so informative. So just wrapping up, how did you get yourself into this position? Share with us how you ended up in this niche.
I've been the wacky world of pet insurance for 9 years. It really has changed. I think 7-8 years ago, you would tell someone, yeah, I work at a pet insurance company, and kind of look at you, what the heck is that? I think specifically over the past 4 years, it really has come to the fold. So to answer your question, I started working here 9 years ago, started out in the filing room, doing some underwriting, then moved into claims, a family business as well, which is quite cool. Happened to just accidentally land up here, and haven't looked back ever since. It comes back to the point I told you, I have an absolute love for animals. And, you go into this corporate world of insurance, it's a different flavor when you actually get to work with pets. We do some really cool things with charities, and we actually have the opportunity to give back. And I think this is the kind of policy which really tugs on the heartstrings, right?
It really makes a difference in everyday lives.
Yeah.
So you would urge everybody to look into insurance?
Yeah. If there's 5 things I can leave your audience with in a policy that you should really, from my perspective, research is, number 1, understand what your annual limit is. I think most people get that. I'll reiterate again, the sub-limits is the biggest one for me.
Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah, and it can be quite hidden in a policy on page 2 or 3 of your document. So it can be called a sub-limit, it can be called an inner limit, per claim limit. Again, you can take a look at those. If you have a 3,000 Rand limit, go ask your vet practice what that procedure actually costs. Don't just assume that 3,000 Rand is enough, right? Because for all we know, that could be a 10 grand procedure. The third one, I would try find a policy which underwrites upfront wherever possible. That way, you as a policyholder are highly informed on what you're buying. If you do have an exclusion in your policy and you hit the vet, it's not a big surprise all of a sudden. And then, after that, I would really take a look at, let me just grab my notes here quickly. Yeah, so then I'll take a look at your waiting period, understand what that is. So, with us, our policy is also incept on the first day of the following month. So even though you sign up on the 15th, your policy will only start on the 1st of the next month, and then your waiting periods would then start. Just really research your policy and understand what you're buying. That way you know exactly what you're in for, what you're covered for, and what you're going to get out of that policy. And then the last one is, if you are also looking for routine care benefits, to a lot of people that means a lot. Getting your vaccinations, getting your deworming, puppy training school. There's an array of benefits out there which you can really, and I urge people, take advantage of those benefits. They're there to be utilized. It's proactive health management. Take your pet for a checkup.
Absolutely.
And you'll get a lot of value out of the policy when you do that.
Yeah. And your final parting words, obviously there are other benefits of being insured. You mentioned some of the added benefits of...
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Yeah, so one of the cool companies which we've partnered with at Puma is a company called Tame, which is online veterinary support. We call it a vet in your pocket. And it's just one of the ways, we're looking at this highly competitive world of pet insurance, and we're saying, how can we add more value to the end customer? What more can we give you to really give you more benefit out of the policy? Because with an insurance policy, it's not like you can necessarily, hopefully you're not going to forecast a claim. There'll be fraud. No. So trying to give people the opportunity to utilize the policy outside of having a claim.
Okay, no, that's great. I think, and if people want to reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can find us. So the company I work for is called P.UMA, so it's pumainsurance.co.za. Just some of the fantastic brands which we represent out on the market. So Medipet will be one of the very well-known ones. They're a fantastic broker if you are looking for a pet insurance broker. They've got an array of policies. Then our general broker product is Paw Pet Health Insurance. Also a great policy, no annual limits, no sub-limits. Just a few little nice bells and whistles. That one's got Tame included as well. And then we've also got Cat and Dog Show, which has also got its own set of benefits. So all the products we release kind of have their own bells and whistles. And then the last one would be Mutual Pets with Old Mutual as well. So you guys are welcome to check them out. Reach out to us. You can find us on social media, and we'll be more than willing to help you out and navigate through this world of pet insurance.
It's been so informative. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you for the time. And I've definitely learned a lot, particularly some of the terminology, which even I didn't really fully understand. So thank you.
Thank you. This has been really awesome. I appreciate your time.
Brilliant. And that wraps up another episode of the Pause and Effect podcast. A heartfelt thank you to Cameron for sharing his expertise on pet insurance and shedding some light on the crucial aspects every pet owner should know. Remember, informed decisions lead to happier, healthier pets. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a pawsome review. Stay tuned for more engaging conversations and valuable insights on the Pause and Effect podcast. I'm Dr. Cara, signing off until next time. Take care of your pets and yourselves, and don't forget to give your pets a hug from me. Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Cara.
Hi, Doc. It's Justin the Jack Rossi here, and boy am I itchy.
Are you on a hypoallergenic diet?
Hyper what now?
Changing to a special diet will really help. And Just for Pets have a massive range. And flea and tick medication, special shampoo.
Ooh, how quick can I get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Get it all to your door.
We have an exciting announcement to make. We are looking for guest speakers who are passionate about the pet industry and sponsors to support future episodes. Are you an expert in pet training, nutrition, or behavior? Maybe you're a veterinarian with insights to share, a pet store owner with unique experiences, or a pet product inventor. We want to hear from you. The Pause and Effect podcast is a platform for industry professionals like you to showcase your knowledge, experiences, and stories. As a guest speaker on our podcast, you'll have the opportunity to share valuable information, engage with our audience, and have your voice heard in the pet community. Whether you want to discuss training techniques, emerging pet care trends, or the importance of mental stimulation for pets, we want to feature you and your expertise. So, if you're passionate about pets and have something to say, we invite you to join us on an upcoming episode of the Pause and Effect podcast. But wait, that's not all. The Pause and Effect podcast is also seeking sponsors to support our mission of educating and entertaining pet lovers worldwide. By becoming a sponsor, you'll gain exposure to our engaged audience and have your brand associated with the love and care that we have for our four-legged friends. If you own a pet-related business, offer pet products or services, or simply want to align your brand with our pet-loving community, we'd love to partner with you. As a sponsor, your brand will be featured prominently in our episodes and our social media channels. It is a great opportunity to showcase your offerings to a dedicated audience of pet enthusiasts. So whether you're an expert in the pet industry looking to share your knowledge, or a business seeking to reach a pet-loving audience, we want to hear from you. To apply as a guest or to inquire about becoming a sponsor of the Pause and Effect podcast, please contact me at drcara@pauseandeffect.co.za. Get in touch and let's discuss the various opportunities. Thank you for joining us today. We can't wait to welcome our future guest speakers and sponsors to the Pause and Effect podcast. Remember, every episode is an opportunity to celebrate our four-legged friends.